This video is for Theme Modeling and Simulation, Unit My iApp. And in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Google Docs to create an online questionnaire. Now, depending on how your school has set up Google, you may need to sign in with one username and one password for all the members in your class. What that means is that everyone in your class logs on with the same username and same password. If that's the case, then from the google.com website, click on Sign In and ask your teacher what your class email address is and what your class password is. Once you've done that, you'll then enter your Google account and go to the Google Docs. If your school has Google Apps, then you will access this Google Docs slightly differently. So make sure that you find out from your teacher whether you use Google Apps or whether you use a class account. If you use Google Apps like my school, then you will go to google.com/a/ and then the name of your school after that. So the name of your school's website after that. So my school is dbs.ae. So I'll click enter, and that will take me to my school's Google Apps login screen. Make sure that your teacher gives you your Google Apps username and password, which means that everyone in your class, if you're using Google Apps, will have a unique username and password. Once you've logged in here, you'll then access Google Docs that way. So there's two ways to log in, each to access the Google Docs. I'm going to log in using Google Apps because my school has that, but don't worry if you're using a whole class login because you'll still access the similar features. So I'm going to enter my username and my password, and I'm going to sign in. Now then, what might happen is if it's one of the first times that you've signed in, it might ask you to re-enter your password and then just enter these letters here for authentication. Basically, this is just checking that you are a human being entering this login and not a web bot. Okay, so once I've entered that incorrectly, I'm going to press sign in. And then if you have accessed your Google Apps for the first time, it will pop up with the welcome to your new account screen like this. Okay, you can read this if you like. If not, just make sure you press I accept, continue to my account. Now then, again, if you've logged in with a whole class account, you'll have a slightly different screen to this once you log in. But as soon as I'm accessing it through Google Apps, I need to click on the Docs button here because I want to create a form, and I can do that through Google Docs. So I'm going to click on that button, and then your screen should end up looking like this. Now, if you've logged in as a whole class account, your screen should look similar to this as well. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to click on this Documents button up here. So you should have that if you've logged in as a whole class account. So we should all now, no matter how we've logged in, we should all now be on the same screen. We're inside our Google account, and we've clicked on Documents. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a questionnaire. Now, Google calls their questionnaires forms. So if I click on Create here, I'm going to create a form. So I'm going to click on that option, and it'll load up a new screen that will look like this. And this is the start of our questionnaire. The advantage of creating our questionnaire this way is that once we've created the questionnaire, it'll be accessible online, which means that anyone that you give this address to here will be able to go and fill in your questionnaire. Also, another advantage is that once people have filled in your questionnaire, the results will automatically be collected and put into a spreadsheet that you can then create graphs from later on. Now at this stage, your teacher should have already spoken to you about what makes a good questionnaire. And some of the features that make a good questionnaire is having a title here and having an introductory text which explains what the questionnaire is for, why you're asking these questions, and what you intend to do with the data that you collect. So we can type those two areas into these boxes. I'm just going to pause the video whilst I write this information in because it'll take me a while, and then I'll come back and carry on with this. So you can see that I've entered my title and I've entered my text, and in the text I've said We are conducting research to find out what mobile applications you find useful as a teacher or student. So I've told them the what we're doing, what it is we're asking these questions about. Our research will help us decide on what app we will build for you. So now you're saying, right, okay, the actual data that we collect, this is what it will enable us to find out. And then I put, please take a few minutes of your time to answer the questions below. So always keep it kind and ask if they mind taking some of their time to fill in the questions. And then I finish by putting thank you. Now you should have already put some thought into the questions that you're going to ask either the teachers or the students. And it's really important that you do think of good questions, because if you try and remember what it is you're trying to find out, the only way you're going to get that information is by asking good questions. So once you've come up with a series of questions, maybe you can get help from your teacher and your friends, you then need to transfer those questions into this questionnaire. Now, each of these yellow boxes here that you can see on the screen represents one question in our questionnaire. I've decided that the very first question that I need to ask is to do with finding out whether the person who is filling this in is a teacher or a student. So I'm going to ask a very simple question. I'm going to type in this box here, are you a teacher or a student? And remember, if it's a question, it needs to finish with a question mark. Now this help text we can use as prompts. What that means is, in case the person who's reading this doesn't understand what the question is asking, then we can actually help them out with some text here. At the minute, I don't think I need to do that because this question is quite self-explanatory. So I think anyone would understand that. Later on, I might need some help text, but we'll talk about that later. The next bit is really important, the question type. And again, you should have spoken about this with your teacher to identify what response you want from that question. Okay, so that's really important again, because the results that you get will be dependent on not only the question that you ask, but the way that you allow the person who's filling it in to give you an answer. So we've got several different question types. We can ask for just text, which is just a simple small text box where they can write anything they want. Paragraph text, which is similar, but it allows the person who's filling it in to write more text. Multiple choice, which means they will get a list and they will be able to choose several things off of that list. Checkboxes, again, similar. Checkboxes will allow them to tick certain options that you give to them. Choose from a list, again, it's very similar in that it will give them a drop-down list of options, but it will only allow them to choose one of those options. So on this one, multiple choice, you can give them a list and they can choose several things off of that list. This one will give them a list, but they can only choose one thing off of that list. A scale, we can use scales if we want ratings for things. So if we wanted someone to rate a product of 1 to 5, 1 being excellent and 5 being poor, we could use this scale option. And a grid, again, very similar. So for this option, are you a teacher or a student? I only want them to give me one response. So I could give them a text box. But if I gave them a text box, someone might type in teacher and spell it incorrectly. Someone might type in student and spell it incorrectly. And that's going to be really bad later on when I analyze the data. Because later on I'll search for the results. So I'll search for how many people said student. But if they've spelt student incorrectly, it won't find them in that search. So that's something I've got to think about. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let them choose from a list. So if I choose this option, it says, right, what is the first thing you want to appear in the list? So I'm going to say, right, teacher. And then if I click in this box here to add another option, I can then write student. So what I'm saying is I am creating a list just like this here, where the person who's filling in this form can either choose that they are a teacher or a student, and I have spelled how these words appear, so they cannot spell them incorrectly. I can as well make it that this form can't be completed unless this question is answered, and we call that making this a required question. Now I definitely want the people who are filling in this questionnaire to answer this question. There might be other questions that I'm not really too concerned whether they answer or not, but this one they must answer. So I'm going to make this a required question. Now, don't think that the done button means that you go on to the next question, because it doesn't. If you press done, that will pretty much close this questionnaire temporarily. What you actually need to do is, if you move your mouse down, you'll see that there's another lighter yellow box appear with these 3 icons. And these 3 icons, the first icon means that I can edit the next question, and that's the button we want to click on. So if I click on that, you can see that this question has now appeared, which is the question that I wrote just earlier. And you can see what it's actually done. It's written, are you a teacher or a student? The red asterisk informs the person who's filling it in that it is a required question. And then I've got the drop down list for them to choose from, teacher or student. So that's what my question that I've just filled in now looks like. I'm now on to question 2. So I've now got to think about what's the next question that I want to ask. And I simply go through the same process that I went through question 1. Write my question, write some help text if I feel the need to, choose the question type, and then decide whether it's a required question or not. So I'm just going to fill in a few of these questions now whilst I pause the video. Just a few things to note before I do that. Don't worry about these 3 options at the top here. Okay, we'll talk about those later. And these 2 buttons here, this button will duplicate a question. So for example, if I'm on this question, if I'm on this question here, and I would simply want to create a duplicate of this, so I want to create the same question again, I could just press this button, and now I get the same question twice. See, I've got it here, are you a teacher or a student? And I've got it here, are you a teacher or a student? So that duplicates the previous question. The trash can will delete this question, which is what I want to do, because I don't want to ask this one twice. So I'm going to click on the trash can, and it'll say, are you sure you want to discard this question? Press OK, and that question will go. Don't think that the question is finished. Look, you can see here that there's no yellow boxes. If I want to edit this question, scroll over it, click on the edit button, and I can continue with it. So I'm just going to fill in a few more questions whilst I pause the video, and you will work through these same steps when you create your questionnaire. So I've now finished writing out my questions and responses. You can see here that I have a multiple choice question. Here I have a checkbox option. So again, checkbox means that you can only select one of them. Oh, it should do. If not, I'll have to play around with that if it's gone wrong somewhere. You see, there you go. I've got them mixed up. So if I go into here, look, multiple choice actually means that I can only choose one. Now what I want to do is I want them to be able to choose many. So what I'm going to do is I've gone to edit it, I've gone to checkboxes, I'm going to make it a checkbox option instead. And this one, I'm going to make multiple choice. That's better. So again here, I'm going to go to multiple choice. Here, I'm going to go to multiple choice. So I got those mixed up earlier. So checkboxes means that I can check 1, 2, 3, or however many I want them to check. Multiple choice allows them to choose only one answer, and that's what I want for these sorts of questions. Okay, so I've got a range of multiple choice, checkboxes. You can see here that I've got some help text to help them out with the questions. And here I've got a paragraph text option as well. And I've got another drop down list here. Once you think you've finished your questionnaire, you can then choose how it looks. So if I go to theme plain at the top, I can then choose through these different options of how I want my questionnaire to look. So there's lots to have a look at. So take a look through them and choose one that you like. I'm going to use this one. And once you click on it, it then shows you that this is how your questionnaire will look. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm happy with it. I'm going to press apply, and that will apply the book's modern theme to my questionnaire. And that's it. As long as this save button here has been pressed, then this form that you've created is now saved. So if I go back to my Google Docs, you can see that my iApp questionnaire, which is this, has now been saved into here. In the next video tutorial, I'm going to show you, once you've created this form, how you can close it and then access it again, because it's quite confusing. If I click on here, it takes me to this, which obviously isn't my form. So in the next video tutorial, I'll show you how to get back to your form once you've saved it.